Right, people, thank you. Now you have to listen to me. Thanks. Hey, that's enough. Today we have to start with ledger accounts. Ek gaan vandag op die Engelse bladsy werk, want ek wil net vir julle verduidelik wat die nuwe grootboekrekeninge is. So can you please make sure that you have the next bit of the notes, the one that says ledger accounts and accounting equation, this one. Companies, ledger accounts and accounting equation. That's the bit where we are now. There are specific accounts that we have to look at. I'm not going to do any of the ledger accounts. I need to explain the ledger accounts. Okay. Ek gaan net van die rekeninge doen. Ek gaan net verduidelik wat is die doel van hierdie rekeninge. Is julle okay daar agter? Okay. Who's missing hierso? Who's this next to you? Now, why did you move? Oh, okay. Near it to me. No, it's fine. Right. Now, you see the rate? I'm recording it. Okay. Right. Right. The first new account is the ordinary share capital account. Die eerste nuwe grootboekrekening is die gewone aandele kapitaalrekening. I told you when we did the share capital that there are different types of shares in real life in a company. There are preference shares, there are shares without voting rights, whatever the case may be. But we are just going to concentrate on ordinary share capital, net gewone aandele kapitaal. This account is in the place of a normal capital account in a sole owner or in the place of capital A and capital B in a partnership. Dit is die rekening waar ons die geld wat die maatskappy ontvang vanaf die aandeelhouers vir die aandele. Daardie geld kom in die gewone aandele kapitaalrekening. That's the account we record the money the company receives when the company issues shares and the shareholder pays for those shares. This is an owner's equity account. This is 'n eienaarsbelangrekening. And it will have a credit balance like any other capital account. So this is just the capital account of this business. A sole owner has a capital account for the owner's equity. A partnership het kapitaal A en kapitaal B en kapitaal C, depending on how many partners actually contribute capital. A company has ordinary share capital. We are just working with ordinary share capital. And if there is 10,000 shareholders and they each bought 100 shares, then the 10,000 times 100, that money will be in the ordinary share capital. Is julle by daarmee? Verstaan almal dit? Eienaarsbelang. When do you write in this account? When the company, if I talk about we, I mean the company. We are the company. Ons is die maatskappy. So as ek van ons praat, is dit die maatskappy. Wanneer gaan ons in die gewone aandele kapitaalrekening skryf? When will you record a transaction? When we issue shares because we receive money for the shares. So ons gaan daar inskryf as die maatskappy aandele uitreik en ons ontvang die geld. Remember, owner's equity increases on the credit side, so this will also be written on the credit side of ordinary share capital. Same accounting principles is still applicable. It's just a new name for this capital account. En dan wat kan gebeur? In a sole owner, the owner can take his capital back. In a partnership, the partner can say, I want some of my capital back, will decrease the capital. The same can happen in a company. And a maatskappy kan die maatskappy sê, I don't want everybody to be shareholders anymore. Let's say that Tristan is a shareholder of our company. He wants to sell his shares. Then we, the company, because we are in the eyes of the law, we are the person. We, the company, can buy back his shares. Yes. Now authorized. Remember, when you set up your company, you register the company at the Register of Companies, you have to say, this company I want to register with 1 million shares. So then if there's only 1 million shares, you cannot issue more than 1 million. You can issue less than the million, but not more than 1 million. Yes. Wat jy ook al besluit, wat die promoters ook al besluit. There's no maximum for a company. When you start a company, when you promote your company, you have to decide how many shares will your maximum be. There is no legal maximum. But if you say your maximum is 500, then that's 500 for your company. Somebody else says, my maximum is 10 million, then for that company, it's 10 million. Yes. You can change it, but then the register of companies must actually approve your application. But they will seldom approve this because remember, let's say that you promote your company with 1,000 shares. I buy 500 and I buy 600 shares. So I am now the majority shareholder. Now you decide, no, I don't want Mrs. Trichardt as my majority shareholder. Let me ask if I can get my maximum authorized to 2,000. Now that means the register is now going to, if that happens, I am no longer the majority shareholder. Will that be fair towards me? No. So very seldom they allow a company. The only way you can get your authorized shares to increase if you amalgamate with another company. Now you say this company had 1,000 was the authorized. The other company we are amalgamating with is 5 million. So now we have together we have 5 million and 1,000 shares because it would be unfair against the existing shareholders if you can chop and change your authorized share capital. Verstaan julle almal dit? Want as ek moes nou die aandele gekoop het in 'n maatskappy van 1,000 aandele en ek het 600 gekoop en nou besluit die direkteure nee wag ons wil eerder nou 2,000 aandele hê, dan is ek nie met die meerderheidsaandeelhouer nie. Ek het dan nou juis gekoop sodat ek die meerderheidsaandeelhouer kan wees. Verstaan julle? So dis onregverdig. That answer your question? Okay. So ordinary share capital increases when the company issue the shares. Wat gebeur nou? No? Okay, so is it all right? Okay, so now remember, as you know, a company is in the eyes of the law a person. So now Tristan doesn't want to be a shareholder anymore. Anybody can buy Tristan shares. The company can buy it as well. Is mos so. As Tristan nie meer sy aandele wil hê nie, hy gaan nou sy aandele wil verkoop. He must sell his shares on this JSE. Hy moet so intoe gaan, maar dis al waar jy kan aandele koop en verkoop. Then the company itself may buy those shares because the company is in the eyes of the law a person. And if the company buys its own shares back, then obviously the share capital will change. Want nou het besit daai aandele word mos nie meer deur die aandeelhouers besit nie. It now belongs to the company itself. And the company will sometimes buy back its own shares, especially if the company, there's two reasons. They can see, the company sees, the director sees, but too many of our shareholders are selling the shares, which means that they are driving the price of our shares down. Verstaan julle dit? So let us rather buy the shares than let somebody else buy this, and then in the end, our company, the value of our shares are decreasing. Of die maatskappy kan sê, ons weet wat hierdie aandele gaan werd wees oor 10 jaar van nou, want ons weet waarna toe ons werk. Eskom, that was not going to work for Eskom, but for most other companies. We know that we are on a growth path. So let's buy the 10 or the 100 shares he doesn't want anymore, and let's wait 2 and 3 years. We pay him 5 rand a share now. 3 years from now, those shares is going to be 20 rand each, then we're going to make a profit. Verstaan julle hoe dit werk? So the price of shares will determine, the market will determine if a shareholder wants to sell his shares, if the company is going to buy this back, or will the company just let it go on the open market. Whoever wants to buy it can buy it. Onthou, want 'n aandeelhouer wat sy aandele wil verkoop, kan aan enige iemand verkoop. There's no rule that says he must sell it back to the company. He can sell it to the person or the legal person who pays the most. Baie keer koop maatskappye aandele in 'n ander maatskappy with the idea. It will be a perfect idea for Pick n Pay, for example, to buy shares in checkers. Because if they can get a lot of shares, they can actually change the voting system, the voting of the shareholders. Dan kan hulle op die manier mos van hulle competitie ontslae raak. Do you understand? So it's a very, those of you going to study accounting, the whole issue about shares in companies is a separate module in accounting. Dis 'n baie is 'n interessante ding want dit gaan net oor die prysie, dit gaan oor die langtermynplan. Is jy all right now met, are you fine with ordinary share capital? Okay, so it increases when the company issues shares, it will decrease when the company buys back the shares. If Tristan sells his share to somebody else, will have no effect on us, the company. Is julle by daarmee? Verstaan almal dit? Okay. Then retained income, behoue inkomste. Dis die gedeelte van die wins na belasting, na dividende betaal is. So if the profit is 100 Rand and 42 Rand went for tax and 20 Rand or 18 Rand went for shareholders for dividends, wat dan oorbly, dit is die behoue inkomste. And that is the company's own money. Remember, the company is a legal person. That's the part of the profit the company keeps for itself. Dis die gedeelte van die wins wat die maatskappy vir homself hou. Hy deel dit nie met die aandeelhouers nie. Dis die maatskappy se wins wat hy vir homself hou. Is julle by daarmee? Do all of you understand that? Retained income also should have a credit balance. It's part of owner's equity. If there's no retained income, if it's a retained loss, dan sy maatskappy in groot moeilikheid. Dan beteken dit hy het nie eers spaargeld van die vorige jaar wat hy kan gebruik meer nie. That company is for all intents and purposes bankrupt. Is julle by? Verstaan almal dit? Are you fine? Dan SARS income tax. SARS income tax can have a debit balance or a credit balance. That's the only account that we have to tell you if it's like bank. Bank can have a debit or a credit balance. Ordinary share capital must have credit. Retained income must have a credit balance. Sahid inkomstebelasting, SARS income tax, can have a debit balance or a credit balance. If it has a debit balance, it means that last year the company paid too much income tax, SARS must refund them. As Sahid inkomstebelasting 'n debietsaldo het aan die begin van die finansiële jaar, dan beteken dit die maatskappy het laas jaar te veel belasting betaal, Sahid moet terugbetaal. Sahid skuld die geld vir die maatskappy. By the way, if SARS owes the company tax refund, they don't automatically pay it. The company has to ask, please pay back. As they gaan Sahid net sê, ons hou die geld want ons weet julle gaan ons volgende jaar weer belasting betaal. And it's a silly company who allows SARS to keep their money in SARS's bank account. Because let's say it's 100,000 Rand that was paid too much. Rather get your money back, put it in your bank account so that you can earn interest. Hoekom wil jy SARS moet van jou geld, van die maatskappy se geld moet hulle nou rente verdien? So if SARS income tax has a debit balance the start of this year, SARS is supposed to refund the company. Sahid gaan net terugbetaal as die maatskappy gevra het. As hy nie terugbetaal, hy hou dit daar vir hom. Want hy weet mos die maatskappy moet hierdie jaar weer belasting betaal. If it's 10 Rand, let SARS keep it. But if it's a lot of money, ask it back, because you can earn the interest on that. Your company can earn the interest on it. As Sahid inkomstebelasting 'n kredietsaldo het aan die begin van die jaar, dan beteken dit jy het laas jaar die maatskappy het laas jaar te min belasting betaal, jy moet nou vir SARS betaal. So if SARS income tax has a credit balance the start of this year, it's a liability, which means we didn't pay enough tax last year. You must pay it now, because SARS will give you 30 days and then they will start adding interest and they will start adding penalties. So debit saldo is 'n goeie ding, ons kan ons geld terugkry. Credit balance, bad thing, pay immediately. Is julle by daarmee? Right. SARS PAYE, that's the amount owed to SARS for PAYE. Dis altyd 'n las. No company pays PAYE in advance. You pay, it's always, the company always owes the PAYE, they deducted from their employees. That money is not the company's money. Dit moet oorbetaal word aan sy. Het jy dit gedoen al in graad 10, toe jy salarisse en lone moes gedoen het? SARS VAT, dit gaan jy hierdie jaar nou nog weer na kyk. SARS, Said BTW, if SARS VAT has a debit balance, it means they must refund you. SARS VAT will have a debit balance if the input VAT last month was more than the output VAT. SARS, the Said BTW, as dit 'n debietsaldo is, beteken dit die insetbelasting, dit wat die maatskappy betaal het vir BTW, was meer as die BTW wat die maatskappy ontvang het. Dan moet Said vir ons terugbetaal. If SARS VAT has a credit balance, it means that last month the VAT we received was more than the VAT we paid, difference we owe to SARS. Is julle by daarmee? Is julle alright? Dan aandeelhouers vir dividende, shareholders for dividends, is always, but always a credit. Because these are the dividends, the company, at the AGM, at the end of the year, there must be a general meeting. At that general meeting, the CEO is going to propose the dividends, the total dividends for the year. Total dividends consist out of interim, let's make it 10 cents that was paid during the year. End of the year, the CEO says our total dividends for this year is 30 cents. We already paid you 10 cents, meneer. Yes, is right?
Okay, dan zie je zo. Ik heb nou die hulpschap van de profiel van Kampia. Dat is nergens effect. Economic is process. Alles is niet aan rekenaar, dus altijd bij de rekenaar en lezen aan. Excel, ik kan niet, want ik zit bij de iedereen met mijn papier. Zo ik heb ook een beetje onderkrijgen.
So if the total, listen to me, at the AGM, by die AJV, onthou AJV staan vir algemene jaarvergadering, at the AGM, 30 cents is the total dividends for the year. That is what the CEO will propose. You are the shareholders, you can vote. Nou sê julle ja, 30 cent is reg. During the year, you all receive 10 cents per share. So what does the company owe you now? 20 cents per share. And that 20 cents per share is a debt that the company has. And that is the amount that would be in shareholders for dividends. In begin volgende jaar, oormôre, gaan ek die maatskappy reg geld vir jou moet betaal. As dan gaan jy sê, I want to sell my shares because you keep on promising dividends, but you never make good on that promise. Is julle by daarmee? So shareholders for dividends is always a credit. Geen maatskappy betaal dividende vooruit nie. There is no such thing that a shareholder is going to owe you dividends. It sal nooit gebeur nie. Is julle by daarmee? Are we fine with this? Okay. These are the balance sheet accounts. Dit is al die balansstaatrekeninge. Then in the nominal accounts, I'm only going to have a look at new incomes and expenses. Net nuwe inkomste en uitgawes. The first lot is all balance sheet accounts, nuwe rekeninge. Right. Director's fee is a new expense. Dis 'n nuwe uitgawe. That is the money that remember, a director of a company can be an employee of that company. 'n Direkteur mag 'n werknemer ook wees. Let's say I am the financial director, maar ek is ook die wage clerk van die maatskappy. I'm supposed to check the wages. Then I get a salary as a wage clerk and I get a fee as director. Is julle by daarmee? That is the director's fee is what the remuneration committee have to decide on. No? So director's fee is a new expense. That's the amount paid to directors to run the company. Depending on what your function is on the board of directors will depend how much you are going to earn. If you are a goodwill director, you are there for your name and not your expertise, then you're obviously going to get a little bit less than I am let's make it a CA. So I'm there to look at the financial side of the company. Share by down here. You will see there are lots of, if you look at public companies, most companies have quite a large board of directors. Then there are non-voting directors, that's direkteure wat nie mag stem nie. Dis gewoonlik publieke figure, public people who's good for that company to have whoever as on the board of directors, want hulle bring 'n bietjie ander perspektief, maar hulle mag nie stem oor belangrike sake nie. It's really, I have a friend who is a non-voting director on the Eskom board, but hy is in the public eye. So dis vir hulle goed om daai persoon te hê op sê, look, Mr. So and so is the director of Eskom. Hy weet niks van Eskom, is ook maar goed, hy weet niks nie, want ek dink baie min mense weet van Eskom. Ek wil eintlik van Eskom praat, want ek moet so 4 ure lank vloek oor Eskom. Ek moet my mond hou oor Eskom. Ek kan niks sê nie. So directors' fees are the amount paid for the directors. It's an expense. It's a new expense. Audit fees, that is, remember, a company must have an independent or external auditor. That person must be registered at SAICA, or SAIPA must be a board certified or chartered accountant. That person is working for the shareholders, reports to the shareholders, the company pays that person. Which can be a conflict of interest. As jy nou mooi daaroor dink, né? Want die onafhanklike ouditeur word betaal deur die maatskappy, né? Maar hy werk nie vir die maatskappy nie, hy werk vir die aandeelhouers. So it can be there are so many. When we get to chapter 6 in your textbook, you will see what are the roles and responsibilities and the regulations governing the work of the independent auditor. Hy word betaal deur die maatskappy, maar hy werk nie vir daai maatskappy nie. Hy werk vir die aandeelhouers. In the end, the fact that the company pays for that, the independent auditor, is part of the expenses of the company, which means the profit will be lesser. Are you still awake? So in effect, the shareholders are actually paying for this as well. So dit sal altyd 'n uitgawe wees. Dan inkomstebelasting is 'n nuwe rekening. Income tax is a new account. In die inkomstebelastingrekening, that is what the tax assessment tells you the tax for this company will be. At the end of the financial year, when the company sends in its financial statements, SARS will come back to the company and say, we've worked through your statements, this is what you owe us for tax. En dit is al bedrag wat in daai rekening kom. Nie wat ons dink ons moet betaal nie, what they say we owe them. Is julle by daarmee? Right? It's actually not an expense, it's part of sharing the profit, maar dit val onder die nominale afdeling. And then the last one is either dividends on ordinary shares or ordinary share dividends is gewone aandele dividende of dividende op gewone aandele. Ek hang af wat die vraestel gebruik moet jy gebruik. I like ordinary share dividends, but I see sometimes they use dividends on ordinary shares. Same thing, just a different name. Okay? This is also under nominal section. It looks as if it's an expense, maar dis nie 'n uitgawe nie. That is the full amount that we are supposed to pay to the shareholders for the dividends. So that beteken, in my case, the full 30 cents, not the 10 cents or the 20 cents, the 10 cents I promised and the 20 cents I paid and the 20 cents we promised. Is julle by daarmee? These two accounts, hierdie twee rekeninge, val wel in die nominale afdeling. They form part of the nominal section, but they are not incomes or expenses. They are sharing the profit, because you know the profit of the company belongs first of all to SARS, then the shareholders must get their dividends, and then what remains goes into the retained income. Is julle by? As die wins R100 is, vat SARS sy gedeelte, die inkomstebelasting. So you share the R100 with the income tax, with the dividends, and what is left goes into your savings account, the company savings account, which is the retained income. Is julle by daarmee? Is there anyone who has a problem? Enigiets? Okay. Nou gaan jy sien hier's weer 'n taakie vir jou. Dis maar net weer gaan net oor rekeninge, jy kan sien. Dit is nog 'n hele paar vragies, jy moet dit nou maar, dit gaan oor die rekeninge, ek is jammer daaroor, en dan gaan ons eers nou van môre af regtig rekeninge doen. It will be silly for me to expect you to do accounts if you do not understand the function of the account. Jy maar jou rekeninge daar aanskryf, né? I know it's a lot of homework, my life is tough, jy's graad 12. Begin. Right. Almal mee klaar maak, ja.